GBNews. Now, the government is set to overhaul disability benefits, with millions facing the biggest welfare reform in a generation. And those who suffer from depression and anxiety could lose cash handouts in favour of talking therapies and social care packages. Well, the Work and Pension Secretary, Mel Stride, spoke to us earlier.
Targeting those who need the help most. One of the concerns I have, for example, are those with progressive, lifelong conditions where currently we know, sadly, people will not be getting better through time, and yet they're having to go through reassessments, jump through bureaucratic hoops and so on. And I want to really look at whether that's appropriate and we can't do things better. I want to look at best practice internationally, and I want to look at the nature of the support that's actually provided. Should it be cash benefits, or should we also be looking, for example, at healthcare support for those, particularly those that are on PIP through reasons of mental health conditions?
So, is this the right way to go? Well, joining me now is the Director of Policy, Research and Impact at the Trussell Trust, and it's Helen Barnard. Helen, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. So, at current, we have an astronomical welfare disability bill, £69 billion per year, 4.2 million individuals on disability or healthcare benefits, and that's an increase of 1 million since 2019. Anybody would agree this is financially unsustainable. The question today, though, Helen, is this the right way to go about it?
Well, I think we would start from looking at, when we look at the food banks that we support across the country, about 7 in 10 people referred to Trussell Trust food banks are disabled. And we know that around a quarter of disabled people are on such low incomes that they are facing hunger. They're not able to afford the essentials. So I think that should be the starting point for how we reform the system, because it is clearly failing to protect disabled people from, incredibly severe hardship. And we know that kind of hardship makes people iller, less able to get work, less able to engage in other activities. So we need to start at that root problem rather than starting off by thinking, how do we cut the bill? Because making people poorer is going to make them more ill and less able to work. It's not going to address the concerns that the Secretary of State raised.
But it may address, for example, the issue of benefit fraud. £6.4 billion last year was the expenditure overpay due to fraud. So can we explore the idea of giving stamps, food stamps or stamps vouchers that can specifically be spent on things rather than giving cash handouts? Because, of course, the subplot is that money might be spent on more nefarious things, cigarettes, booze, for example. Is vouchers an answer? If you need help, great, but here's a voucher which you can only spend on something you actually need rather than frittering it away on something else, perhaps.
Well, I think we need to be very careful here. So the fraud that we see in the system is very, very small compared to, for instance, tax avoidance. And the fraud that we're seeing in the stats are actually about organised criminal gangs who have been defrauding universal credit. There is no suggestion that there are large numbers of disabled people who are defrauding the system. So I think we need to be very, very careful about trying to make accusations like that. I think the other thing is that when you look at how people spend their benefits, people are grown-ups. They spend their benefits on the stuff they need. They spend them on bills, on rent, on food, on running medical equipment. And the idea that you would want to create some new system of vouchers, which would be expensive, cumbersome, and it's been tried many times before, what you find is that A, it's dehumanising. Disabled people have the right to an income that they can use to lead a dignified life, just like you or I would. But also, it's incredibly hard to design a voucher system that you can use the vouchers at the lowest cost shops. That's why it's never worked. There is no evidence people spend their money on anything other than what they really need. The problem is they don't have enough to cover the basic bills and food and other essentials. So we've had people who are literally turning off life-saving medical equipment because they can't afford their energy bills. Now, that is unacceptable in any civilised society, and it does not deliver any of the government's aims. It just makes people more unwell and less able to work if they can, to care for others, to take part in society in the way everybody should be able to.
And of course, Helen, we have seen, for example, in the United States, when food stamps are given out and food stamps can become a currency in their own right. And actually, they're far devalued. So $100 of food stamps might have a $50 street value, which can be traded for other things. So even when it has been tried, hasn't always worked.
I mean, yeah, it just creates a whole new currency, and it's completely unnecessary. And I think the other thing we need to say that's not been said enough. So one of the main benefits, personal independence payments, the government is talking about reforming them. Now, that is not an out-of-work benefit. That's a benefit to enable any disabled person to meet the extra costs of disability. Many people use it actually to pay for things like accessible transport to get them to work. That is an incredibly hard benefit to get access to. It's a 50-page form. You have to add in other kinds of evidence. 82% of people have to have an independent assessment. It takes months to get access to that benefit. In the meantime, people can't get to work, can't pay the bills. So the bar is incredibly high for these disability benefits. We need to be enabling people to get faster access to them, not putting up even more barriers that just prevent people taking part in society in the way they should.
OK, Helen Barnard, thank you for joining us and giving that impassioned monologue there. Superb stuff. Director of Policy, Research and Impact at the Trussell Trust. Helen Barnard, thank you so much.